but I was praying in the prayer that that you guys would begin to see, and that I would begin to see what God's been showing me, and is still showing me, is this amazing bridge that we have between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and knowing that there's just this theme of this wedding theme that begins in the very beginning, and we end in the very end with the wedding. There's the very first wedding, creation of man and woman, Adam and Eve, and then at the very end, the revelation of Christ and his bride, and Christ bringing his bride to the Father. And there we have it. And so it blew my mind when I began to see it, and I began to start taking notes. And this is actually a series that has kind of been, God's been weaving in and out of my heart and mind for years. And so I'm so thankful to be able to have this chance to share it with you. I love a good love story, and I love to hear how people met and fell in love, and I love to hear all of the details and the juicy details of how people meet. Like, was it love at first sight? Was it this long experimental thing where people were just friends and then they kind of discovered that, hey, we're in love with each other? Or was it dramatic? Was it soft? Was it something that involved a lot of drama? Or was it something that was just really, really sweet? Was there all this tumultuous background, or was it just this soft little thing that happened, and this sweet presence of God just brought people together? Did they know Christ? Did one of them know Christ? One day, I love to hear all the stories, because God is in every single love story. And it took me a long time to realize that we have a love story with Christ. And there is a moment that happens in our hearts when the reality of who he is begins to catch up with the reality of who we are. And his breath overtakes us, and we fall madly in love with him. And when I first came to know Jesus, it was as a father. I didn't feel safe knowing him as a husband, because my whole relationship with God has kind of been like this, like protecting my heart, keeping him kind of at bay, because I have been wounded so much and so often by men, that just for me to allow him into my heart as a father was a very big step for me. And I didn't understand what it would be like to know Jesus as my husband. And I didn't even know when it happened. The way that I knew it happened is that one day I was cleaning out a pantry in our house, and I found a program from our wedding. And it had a poem on it that I had written to Matt for our wedding day. And when I picked it up, and you know how sometimes when you're cleaning out drawers or pantries or old closets, like instead of cleaning, you actually start looking at everything that you're cleaning, and then you don't finish the cleaning. That's kind of what I was doing that day.
That explains a lot.
Yeah. I'm sure it does. And so that's what I was doing. So I picked up that poem, and as I read it, which were words, I remember writing the poem and feeling them very deeply towards my husband. But on this day, when I was reading them, they were, in my heart, I was knowing that I was speaking them about Christ. And I was like, no way! That was so cool. Because I knew something had to have happened in the unseen realm of this relationship between Christ and I for me to be able to trust him with my heart in that way, as a wife would trust her heart to her husband. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I knew that had happened. And what I've been praying so much is that would happen for you. And some of you, it may have already happened, and this is going to be like just a walk down romantic memory lane between you and Christ. And for some of you, maybe it hasn't happened, and this is going to be the most amazing time as you literally walk down the aisle with Christ as his bride and experience him in that new way that you maybe never had before. It's really hard to view your relationship with Christ in that way. But as I was praying to God and asking him what is going on in the church, as my husband can tell you, one of the things that has broken my heart more than anything else is to see so many women turning their hearts against their husbands, turning their hearts against Christ. and just getting this hardness about them. And I'm like, and it scares me because I don't want that to happen to me. But yet these women, the caliber of the women that that's happening to are no better than I am, no different than I am. In some respects, they're way farther along than I thought I was. And I'm just like, how is that happening? And what God was showing me, he was showing me they're not in love with me. And I thought, well, how can that be? Because you are love. If we're in you, how can we not be in love? And he was just showing me the reality that we are never more in love than when we are in Christ. No one can ever take us away from the reality that we are in love when we are in Christ. But we can be moved out of the awareness of that reality. Does that make sense? And that the enemy comes in and says, you're not in love. He doesn't love you. And we were created for love. In the very beginning in the garden, there was Adam, there was Eve, and there was God. And if God is love, you could literally say there was Adam, and there was Eve, and there was love. And they were in perfect harmony with each other. And then, we all know what happened, which we're going to talk about that in a minute. But when Christ came and died on the cross, he redeemed that so that we could have that back. There could be a husband and a wife, and there could be love. Or there could even just be you, a wife, and love. There could be, it's the bride of Christ and love are created to coexist. He redeemed that back for us. But we don't always believe that he has. And that awareness right there is the reason that this bride is suffering so much. Because we were created for love, and the enemy comes in and makes us just exploits that emptiness we feel sometimes. And we feel unloved, and so therefore we believe we are unloved, so therefore we go seeking for it in other places, and then we end up, it's like this carrot that he's always holding out in front of our face that we're never going to catch, we're never going to get to. So therefore, we just continually chase it and chase it and chase it, and we waste our whole lives doing that. And it could be in a lot of different ways. One night I was praying. I tell y'all this if y'all know me. I pray a lot in the bathtub. So my husband knows why I take such long baths. But when one night I was praying, and I was praying, God, bless us. We need you. And I heard him. Sometimes I hear him very clearly. Sometimes it's just really small, and I have to pray about it. But this time it was one of those clear moments where I heard him loud and clear. And he stopped me and said, do not pray for me to bless them anymore. I have given them everything. You pray that they will see. They will see that they've been given everything. And I thought, wow, that is it. We're blind. We're literally blind to the reality. We're blind to the love that we've been given in Christ. And so I just prayed through this series that your hearts would just be able to see him and to awaken to him in a new way, in a new light. We're going to take a journey through an ancient Hebrew wedding together, and you'll be amazed that when you hear about the steps that take place in the wedding, you'll be able to see, if you have any experience with the Bible or if you're brand new to the Bible, that there is this order to it that so parallels the order to the Bible and to Christ coming for us as a groom coming to get his bride. And it blew my mind when I started learning about what takes place in the ancient Hebrew wedding. So that's kind of going to be the order of this series. We're going to walk down the aisle, literally, with Christ through this series. And in biblical times, people were married very early in life. And what happened, what a wedding was, is it was a financial transaction where the father of the groom is the one who paid the price for the bride. It was something very serious to the family, because in ancient Hebrew families, the call of God on their lives, that promise of God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was everything to them. And the fathers were kind of the person in the family that took control of that, and they had the charge of protecting that heritage for their family line, not only for their family that they saw, but for their multiple generations. And they knew that if they ever lost that,